You've entered Bookstorm with Kristen Civiletto and me, Chris Storm. This is a podcast devoted to best-selling books that matter, books that make a difference. We're diving down deep with beloved authors about their stories. We're exposing hot-button topics and heartfelt themes, the issues that affect each of us in our own lives, as siblings, parents, partners, friends, as human beings. We're braving new ideas, fresh thoughts, hard lessons, and important truths. Those kinds of things that stay with us long after we turn the last page and close the book. Welcome back, Bookstorm listeners and book lovers. We are thrilled to have Alka Joshi back with us for the second time. You will remember that we had her last year and we interviewed her for The Secret Keeper of Jaipur, which was the second book in the series. First book being the Henna Artist, second, Secret Keeper of Jaipur, and now we're here to talk to her about The Perfumist of Paris, which we loved. And for those of you who weren't with us last time, we're going to introduce you to her so you can maybe meet her for the first time and give you a little of her bio. But Alka, welcome back.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here again, especially with two people who read books so closely and have really good questions about them.
Well, we're thrilled to have you. And yes, we do. We choose the book, we read it, we vet it. And as a result, little update for our listeners, BOOKSTORM Podcast is being listened to in 50 countries, 729 cities, and almost 50 states in the U.S. Thank you to all book lovers. So back to our dear friend Alka. We can call her a friend now because she's been here twice. She was born in Jodhpur, Rajasthan, India. She's lived in the U.S. since she was 9 years old. She has a BA from Stanford and an MFA from California College of the Arts. She ran her own advertising and PR firm for 20 years. Her debut novel, The Henna Artist, became an instant New York Times bestseller. All three books have had accolades and endorsements from people like Reese Witherspoon and her Hello Sunshine production company, the Library Journal, Publishers Weekly, Booklist, Toronto Star, Harper's Bazaar, Vogue India, and so very many more. And I want to add a congratulations because I see that The Henna Artist is in a screen adaptation for development on Netflix.
Yeah, isn't that exciting?
Very exciting and well-deserved. All three of these books are beloved by all fiction lovers and especially by Bookstorm Podcast. So happy to have you back here.
Oh, thank you, Chris and Kristen.
Absolutely. Well, we like to give just a short summary of what is going on in the book. So if you'll allow me, I will do that. And then, of course, you can add anything that you want to add at the end, and I will not give away any spoilers. We find ourselves in the Perfumist of Paris in 1970s Paris. And Radha is now living there with her husband, Pierre, and their two daughters. She is still grieving some events in her past, including a baby boy that she gave up years ago when she was only a child herself. But she loves being a mother to her daughters, and she has finally found her passion, and that is the world of scents. She is working for a master perfumer, and she's helping to design new perfumes in Paris in the 70s. She gets the opportunity at one point to travel back to her homeland in India, and she enlists the help of her sister, Lakshmi, as well as the courtesans of Agra to develop potentially a new scent. Now, these developments are exciting, and she now, though, finds herself in the very challenging position of a budding career, being a mother, and being a wife. And then in the midst of all of that, some of the secrets of her past materialize and threaten her already vulnerable marriage. Would you want to add anything to that summary?
No, I think that's perfect. I can't wait to get started.
Us too. Well, let's go ahead and brave the storm. Chris will kick us off.
So first I have to say thank you, because once again, you've transported us to another place, another time, through this newest novel, now into a myriad of complex, interwoven, subtle, and strong scents. Perfume in the making. And I'm going to tease our listeners with a few scents: lavender, geranium, violet, cedar, musk, sandalwood. Wait for it. A mud hut, a person you love. Wow. I loved when Radha returns to India after so many years. She gets off the plane. She's in the airport, walks out the door. She breathes in a lungful of scents. For these odors, the good and the bad, comprise our lives. The reader couldn't help but wonder about the aromas in their own life. Do we tend to minimize scent over sight and touch? And as the writer of this story, can you expand upon the importance of these scents in our lives for both Radha and for each of us today?
Well, scent is the most intimate sense that we have out of the five. So anytime that you are, let's say, smelling a flower, or your dog comes in and his coat is all damp, or you are tilling soil and trying to grow something, those scent molecules enter your brain for a short period of time, but it becomes part of your memory. So that the next time you smell those same things, you remember what you were doing, what was happening during that time. And did you know, even when you taste food, it enters your nose first. The scent molecules enter your nose before you even taste something in your tongue. So I think that what's happening with Radha, because her earliest memories are from India, she was raised and born in India, that all of the scents that she smells once again when she goes to India, they remind her of something. They remind her of the earth, the mud hut that she grew up in. They remind her of her baby's, the milk breath that babies have. Because of the baby that she had when she was 13, 14 years old. It reminds her of the diesel fumes. And in India, all of the trucks that go by you on the freeways are all diesel gas. And so that is a very prominent smell that you will always encounter. Another thing is she would remember her mother at the cooking hearth and the smell of wood being burned. So these are all familiar scents to her, and they're coming to her not just through the scent, not just through her nasal senses, but also from the memory of the first time she encountered those. And I think that is a beautiful thing about scent that I wanted to explore. My earliest memories, since I grew up in India, are of those same scents. I can actually recall in my memory the scent of, let's say, betel nut that my mother used to chew. I can smell, even before I have seen a mango, I can smell that mango in my brain and in my memory. And I think you guys could do the same thing wherever you grew up and whatever scents you grew up with. So scent is connected to memory, and that memory, whether it's good or bad, will come to you the next time you smell that same thing that you used to remember. Isn't that, I find that fascinating.
It's absolutely fascinating. And for the reader, we open the book, we think we're talking about perfume, but we're really talking about what goes into the composition of a good perfume. You opened us to really look at our own lives and look back. And for me, sometimes through life, I would smell something that I didn't anticipate smelling and be brought back to the past in a surprising way. The good and the bad was shocking. Like you said, the diesel fumes. Whether or not it's a good odor doesn't matter. It's the memory that equates to it or accompanies it. And it's just such a beautiful way of looking at your life.
Yeah, and I really wanted to explore the two sides of Radha. She has the Indian side of her, and now she has been living in Paris over a dozen years. And so now she has that memory as well, that a whole group of scents from that. So she is combining both. She wants to combine both parts of those memories together when she creates a scent. And that is, the big accomplishment that she is trying to make in the Perfumist of Paris. She's trying to create a scent that will combine both of those ingredients. One of the coolest things I found when doing the research for the Perfumist of Paris is that many of the ingredients that go into the perfume you're wearing today, or the shampoo that you use on your hair, or the sage that you may clear your room with, many of those ingredients are coming from India. And India has just not been known as the place where so many of these things come from. India and then Southeast Asia, because it's in the tropics that many of these very intense essences are grown and harvested. So I wanted to highlight that through Radha's story. I wanted to highlight how many of these amazing ingredients that go into scent fragrances are coming from that part of the world that I am from. And I want that part of the world to gain recognition for that, if that
It,
makes any sense.
it
But
does.
yeah, and let me tell you about a couple of other cool things that I found out in my research, because I went to Paris, I went to Lisbon, I went to Grasse in the southeast part of France, and I went to New York City. Now, these are all big scent, areas. And I talked to so many master perfumers, and I found out, what does it take to be a master perfumer? What do you have to learn? How many scents do you have to know? It turns out they have to know at least 3,000 scents that they have memorized in their brain, so that when they, let's say, create a fragrance, a client has come to them and said, create a fragrance for me that reminds me of the Alps or whatever. And when they start creating that formula, it's always in their brain. They can remember the scents and go, okay, I'm going to do 0.5 grams of that and a milliliter of this and so on. And they put that formula together. Then it goes off to a lab where a lab assistant like Radha would be putting all of that together into a blend, putting the formula together. Then that blend goes back to the master perfumer, and then that's the first time they smell it from a blotter. And they, wave that blotter in front of their nose and they go, okay, that's kind of where I wanted to go, but maybe I need to increase this or that. And I just found that so fascinating that they can do everything from the memory of that scent in their brain.
It is. It's amazing. Really amazing.
I learned so much reading your book, and not so much in an academic sense, but more this immersion. You took us into this world, and I thought that was so amazing. I stayed up all night reading, and I shouldn't do that, but I love books that take me there and transport me like that. There's another theme that emerged in your book that I was very interested in. And your story takes place in a very critical time for women all across the globe. We're talking the 1970s. And they were negotiating new roles. They were trying to balance careers, maybe being a parent, a spouse, and all of those responsibilities. And like now, it's very easy for women to maybe lose a bit of themselves or a part of their life. And one of your characters posed this question, and it really got me. She said, is that erasure of us something that other people do to us, or do we women do it to ourselves? If that's happened, how can we reclaim that lost part, that part that's been erased?
I think that women do it to themselves, and I think that other people do it to us. So I think that reclamation of that essence of us has to come from a lot of courage we summon with ourselves, but it also has to come from hard choices that we make. So I think that we can't have everything, right? We can't have a fabulous career and a very 100% home life where we're dedicating all that time to our children and to our husband. Something has to give. And those are hard choices that I think every woman has to make. Um, so not everybody gets 100% of us. And then we also need a percentage of that for ourselves, right? So the I think that it's in the making the hard choices about how we want to spend our time and where we want to divert our energies that also Radha comes to. That is something that she comes to as well. Um, and I think maybe all of us do. I know that I've had to make those choices in my life. I'm sure you have. I'm sure a lot of our listeners and readers have. Um, and sometimes what is the hard choice that you have to make in that situation, finding that part of yourself that maybe you've lost, is giving up something else, right? Because as I said before, we cannot have it all. And it's easier said than done, but sometimes it means we let go of somebody in our lives who is not serving us well. That could be a friend, it could be a partner, it could be, a situation we found ourselves in. And I think we continually have to purge from our lives things that are not serving us. That is so hard to do. I know it's so hard to do. And Radha has to go through that. She has to go through that decision making, and she has to figure out what it is that she loves to do, and that is creation of scent. She is so excited by the possibility of creating things that other people have never created before. I mean, can you imagine how exciting that is? It's sort of like the podcast that you started. You have a vision for it that you want to leave the world with. And that is something you're doing for yourself, and you're doing it from within. And that is something that Radha is trying to do with her fragrances. No one should take that away from her. Yes, she can still be a mother. She can still take care of her kids. She can still be a wife. But if there's something impeding her from doing the thing that is finding that excitement within herself, then she needs to think about whether she can let that go.
Yeah, that's beautifully put. And I loved that your characters were struggling with these issues at a time when there wasn't a lot of support in the outside world. Women were a little bit unsure, maybe, about how to navigate some of these very, very tricky waters. Even the messaging from commercials and TV were, you know, it was a point of view that was being advanced. And so her struggles, the things she was thinking about, that resonated with me on so many levels that I really appreciated seeing how she walked through and navigated, these experiences. What a great theme running through your story.
Yeah. And I think, I'm always trying to work through some of these issues myself when
Yeah.
I write about these characters. So at the end of it, I always conclude that there's no right answer. There's no hard and fast answers to anything that happens in our lives. We just have to move on and go to the next step and the step after that, and try to see what we're doing that is maintaining the essence of who we are and what we want to do with our lives.
Do our best.
It's pure wisdom what you just said there, because we do go through it. And even for Radha, she is seeking to use her passion and her gifts, but we're not always supported in life. You come up against obstacles and controversy and people who think you shouldn't be self-serving in any way. And so this was an eye-opener of wisdom for all women, even today in 2023.
Yeah. And I think part of what I'm trying to explore is Radha is living 50 years in the past, right? And I wanted to know and understand, why is it that we are still struggling with the same issue that Radha was struggling with 50 years ago? Why is it that it is still not an easy thing for a woman to find her place in the world and to be a mother and to be a wife? Why is it still something that she feels she's falling short of. You know, we women, I think, tend to bear a lot of responsibility for everything that is happening in our lives. I think men a lot less so, and they're focused on maybe a career, as opposed to women who also have household duties and caretaking of children that they're responsible for. So I think that women more than men really, are struggling with how much time do I devote to each of these areas of my life. And we're still doing it. Childcare is still not accessible to so many women. The wage gap still persists. And women are still, less respected, I think, in the workplace than men are. And I want to find and sort of bring to light that idea that 50 years ago, when Radha's struggling with these, it is still an issue today. Why? Why are we not anywhere closer to where we need to be?
Mm-hmm. And Kristen and I are very big believers in women empowerment and women as a minority in some cases still today. And that's wisdom. Also, that leads into my next question. Gigi, the character Gigi, also gives us some wisdom in this regard. She says, and I want to quote, "The measure of us isn't in the day to day, and it's not in our past or our future. It's in the fundamental changes we make within ourselves over a lifetime." Radha made many deliberate and well thought out changes in her life. I felt as if you might be telling the reader that, of course, some events occur in life that we don't have any control over, but there are those moments in time where we do have a choice, a decision. We got to muster the courage and the bravery to take action. And I wondered if you could expand upon the importance of this in Radha's life, of breaking out, making a change, being bold, being brave, taking a risk, whatever you call it, and for each of us today.
The reason that Lakshmi, Radha's older sister, says this particular thing to her is because Radha can't understand why Lakshmi would forgive her ex-husband for all of the physical abuse that he subjected her to over the 2 years of their marriage. And Lakshmi very clearly feels that whatever Hari, her ex-husband, has done in the past is not the whole measure of him. Look at what he is doing today. Now he has become a protector of women who cannot protect themselves. He is helping women who are unfortunate in one way or another. And so the full measure of him has to be taken over the totality of his life. Yes, at one time he was a wife abuser, but he has used that unfortunate thing about his life, and he has turned it into a positive. And so I think that part of what Radha is struggling with is when she talks to her sister about this is how do I think about people without just thinking about the latest thing that they did to me? And I think we all, go through this. We, find ourselves being cut off at the grocery line. Somebody gets in front of us and we think, oh my gosh, what a selfish person they are. Well, they may not be a selfish person their whole life. That was just one selfish act that they did. Or, we might be in a meeting at work and think that somebody else has gotten a promotion, and we resent that about them, and we think they're not as good as us. And that may be true, but that is just one small portion of their interaction with us. It may not be the totality of who they are, who we are. So that is the main message here is, that we don't exist in little parts of our lives. We don't just exist in vacuums of those little parts. We actually are a whole person. We have whole experiences. We are not perfect. We have regret. We have things that we do that we wish we hadn't done. We have what do you call them? Addictions in our lives, like mine with sugar. We have all kinds of things that that make up the whole of us, and we should not expect other people to not also have parts of them that they don't like, that we don't like, but that make up all of them. And I think we just have to keep reminding ourselves that whatever it is that other people are doing and whatever we're doing, it's just a small fragment. It's so hard to do, isn't it? It's so hard to do because we do something bad. Let's say, like I ate a whole plate of cookies the other day. And I thought, what is wrong with me? Why am I, why am I doing this? I'm probably doing it to comfort myself over something that happened. I think we all indulge in things because we're comforting ourselves. And then for that moment, I really don't like myself for having done it. But that's just one part of my whole life. That's just one part of my day. And I have to forgive myself. And I just have to say, okay, well, I've already done that. And I just need to go on from here.
What you're really saying is so true, that we need to offer a little understanding and empathy and not so much judgmental of other people, because in turn, we would hope that they wouldn't look at us in such a judgmental way for a lot of myriad of reasons, like you said. And I always say, in my mind, and I think most people, our very best leaders, our most charismatic spokespeople, people that we want to listen to and learn from, are not perfect. If you show a weakness or a mistake or something that you have overcome or was able to put behind you or work through, we can all relate to it. Because like you said, Alka, no one's perfect. And thank goodness for second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth chances.
I know, really. Really. And I think about that. I think, wow, this is my fourth career, becoming a full-time author. And, when I was in my other careers, I couldn't see this. I couldn't see this at the end of the tunnel. So I think that oftentimes when we get stuck on something that we have done and we have not forgiven ourselves, we forget that there's more to come. There's more to this story than we realize.
I love
Excellent.
that.
I'd like to dive in just a little bit deeper on something that you said. We were talking a little bit about shame. And, some of your characters really struggled with shame, maybe over things in their past or even a current situation. And some of these negative feelings impacted how they perceive others were perceiving them, their self-image, maybe some of the choices they were going to make. And a lot of times these are things these characters didn't even have control over. And look at our own lives, things we didn't have control over, but we still experience shame. And I was wondering if you believe that as a society, we are equipping young people to process that shame and to start to come to terms with themselves in more of a holistic way. What do you think?
I do think that we're trying to equip young people of that, but I think that there is something about us as the primitive beings that we used to be. It's really hard to overcome shame. It's hard to overcome anger. It's hard to overcome the defenses that we put up. Because if you think about it, when we were cave people, we had to look towards the negative in order to survive. We had to always be on the lookout for the woolly mammoth or the poison berries, or, and so our brain tends to go towards the things in our lives that are not comfortable. So we tend to go towards regret and shame, and they're all part and parcel of the negativity, I think, that our brain goes toward. I think have always struggled also with shame, things I've done in my life that I wish I hadn't. I don't think any of us escape that. And the only way that I can think of to get out of that mindset is to say, well, that happened. I'm not proud of what happened. And I cannot change what happened. And I need to think about what that experience taught me as a lesson. So the lesson might be that, I will no longer do that thing, or I'm going to be more aware when I'm doing it and stop myself. Um, okay, so recently, I'll give you an example. In my life, I and also in Radha's life. In Radha's life in particular, she gets pregnant at the age of 13, and she doesn't immediately have shame around it because she thinks she is so much in love with the boy, the 17-year-old boy, whom she was fooling around with. But I think after that, knowing that she has let go of this baby, that she has given him up for adoption, that for the last 17 years, she has had nothing to do with his life deliberately. I think she has some shame around that. She has some shame around what she did and how she let go of this baby. And, she needs to just acknowledge that it happened, acknowledge that it won't happen again, acknowledge that that's just a part of, a human experience that she went through. And then she has to move on with her life. In big parts of her, she has moved on, right? She's living in Paris. She has her kids. She has her husband. She has this work that she likes, but she has buried very deeply the shame surrounding what happened a long time ago. And she does get a chance in this story of the Perfumist of Paris to reconcile herself to what happened and to let go of some of that shame. So I think we all have to go through that. In my mind, in my experience, what happened is right here, we are remodeling our house. In fact, I'm in a cottage that we wouldn't normally be living in. You can see with the paintings and stuff behind me, they're just like wedged up against the walls. So, the house is completely open to the elements. There's been a whole lot of rain here. And I thought, oh my gosh, we are going to drown that house. It's there's no roof. There's just going to be water everywhere. My contractor is not doing the right thing. I need to look up on Google how you deal with a house that's under construction, that's having all this rain. And I was trying to second guess everything he was doing. And ultimately he said to me, either you trust me to do this job or you don't. The moment that you signed that contract, you were saying, I trust you to do this job. Now, I was so embarrassed. I had shame around this because I'm not trusting him. And in not trusting him, I'm also not trusting myself to have made the right decision with this contractor. So I acknowledged that that was something I was doing. And I said, I've got to move past this. I can't just wallow in that shame, that regret. And so I wrote him an email saying, okay, Matt, I have decided that you know how to build houses. So I'm going to let you build a house. And I am really good at writing. So as long as you don't interrupt my writing and tell me how to write, we will both stick to our, expertise and our strengths. And, our relationship since then, the contractor and I, has been so much better. So I just learned from that experience that I need to let go of certain types of control that I am always imposing, because I feel that unless I'm involved, it's going to all go to hell, So, yeah, so I think that the way we can equip our young people is to first acknowledge that something happened that's causing us that shame. And then to acknowledge that it happened in the past. We can't do anything about the past. We can't rewrite it. And what did I learn from that experience, and not do it again?
Yeah, that's excellent. I think there's a lot of people who needed to hear what you just said because young and old, we become stuck. And a lot of times we're stuck because we are reliving in our mind these things that have been burdening us and weighing on us for a long time. So thank you for that. Those were very wise words.
Yes.
Yeah.
Our listeners are going to be dying to pick up this book, The Perfumist of Paris, after hearing this deep discussion. And let us just tell you that you're going to love the characters. The story is amazing. You're going to see a little something of yourself in these characters, maybe discover something you never knew about yourself, like Kristen and I just did. And let me also tell everyone how to connect with Alka Joshi in the meantime. She has a wonderful website. You can find her on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. She's also on LinkedIn, and you can find many interviews like this one on YouTube. Well, Alka, now we can't help but ask you, we're going to ask you, what are you working on next? Because we're excited for what's to come.
What's on that radar?
I am working on novel number 4. And this one it's not part of the trilogy because the trilogy is over. Although who knows, maybe at some point I might come back and write about the next generation, like Radha's daughters and Malik's children. So I may, progress to that. But the trilogy is over. So I am doing something that is not part of the trilogy. It takes place in 1937. And there's a young nurse who's been in charge of a patient, a female painter who has died unexpectedly. And she goes to Europe in search of all the places that the painter had been to try to find out what happened. Why did she die? Why was she brought into the hospital and so on?
Wow. Does that sound intriguing?
Very.
Wonderful. Well, we're very glad that you're on your 4th career of writing, and we're saying, please stay here. Don't go anywhere else now. We're all absolutely thoroughly enjoying your novels, and it was a pleasure having you on here a second time. Let's look forward to the 3rd time with this next book.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Kristen. Thank you. I enjoy you guys so much. And thank you for bringing books to all these readers and having such a personal and deep connection to them. I appreciate it.
Thank
so
you.
Good to see you. Thank you. As always, just love talking to Alka Joshi. And she takes us into another world, Kristen, not only India, but another world, even here in our own lives that maybe we haven't considered before. I loved your second question where you were talking about erasure of women in the past, in the 70s, in the 60s, but even today. Do you agree with Alka that this is still going on?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, part of this might be generational, right? You and I have raised children and we came up at a certain time. But I will tell you that there was a time when I was in law school and the messaging was you can have it all. You can be a career woman, you can be a mother, you can be a spouse, and you can juggle all of those things perfectly. And I remember that was the messaging we were being given. Now, again, there's all kinds of cultural things going on, and that is women were joining the professional workforces in greater numbers than ever before. But that was very damaging. I don't know if you ever felt this way.
I did. So we were talking about this a little before we got started. And I said to Kristen, do you remember that old song? It was for a commercial. It said, you can bring home the bacon, you can fry it up in a pan. I can bring home the bacon, I can fry it up in a pan, but I'll never let you forget you're a man. And I said, what? I remember looking at this as a young child thinking, I got to do it all. Then I have to come home and make sure somebody else is happy besides myself. And you found the song, didn't you?
I did. Let me see if we can play it. I don't know.
Bring home the bacon, fry it up in a pan, and never let you forget you're a man. Give her
Oh my goodness.
I really am
And a
not
perfume
fond of that
commercial.
song.
But look what that did. It created an expectation on women that was almost impossible. And I love what Elka said because she said you're going to have to prioritize. There are things that you're going to have to make difficult choices about. And you may not make the right decision at first, but you keep trying and you do your best. And I love that messaging that we're trying to put on young people now. And that is do your best. Start, maybe thinking a little bit more narrow with priorities. Because in the 80s and 90s, that was not the messaging.
No, it was
Right.
not. It was that, yes, as a woman, you may pursue your passion and dream, but you have to be everything that you used to be in the 50s and 60s
Yeah.
also. And now I think couples are sharing responsibilities more
We hope.
and dispersing things because you do have so many young women who are career minded. And I'm so happy to see that. But I remember I had a medical consulting company in Pittsburgh for 15 years. And I was very busy. And I remember like a year ago, I asked my kids, what did I make you for dinner? They said, Mom, not much. I knew just where to get takeout, just where to get chicken pot pie that you had to pop in the oven, but they survived just fine because you can't do it all. And I like the way Alka Joshi said, don't be afraid to pursue your dreams either.
Yes.
Life is so short, and don't feel guilty for taking time out, like the character Raha did here, where she decided, I want to be a perfumist and I'm up against a lot of obstacles, but this is my passion and I'm good at it. And I love it so much. And why can't I bring this into my world in some way?
Yeah. First of all, I'm not going to ask my children what they remember about cooking growing up. I hope you never know what kids are going to say, but
They're not here, so we don't have to worry.
But I love what you said, because when we think about, those expectations, I think that reset was necessary because it was causing so much angst and stress on mothers. And my children have said to me that me working and the interests I've always pursued, because I'm one of those people that if there's 24 hours in the day and I have an interest in something, I will sacrifice my sleep because I want to indulge some of those interests and things that really get me curious. Well, they told me later that they appreciated that because not only did it introduce them to things they maybe wouldn't have considered otherwise, but they felt like it made me a person that they could really, learn from or talk to things about. They're like, you seem to have a lot of widespread experience. So I was very glad that that's at least how I chose in my life and raising my children, how to pursue it. That's not right for everybody. Some people need more sleep maybe than me.
But then your kids followed you. Then they
Right.
saw you
That's
going
right.
after your dreams and your career, and they said, Mom did it. I can do it too. And also, what Alka said, there is no right or wrong answer.
Correct.
We as humans are so very different creatures. Think of the snowflake in all of its different forms and textures, and we are much the same. So we can't compare to anyone else, and we can't feel guilty. So let's
Right.
talk about this guilt issue, this shame issue that you brought up. What on earth is up with that today, that we would carry around so much guilt and shame over something we've done before? I love this idea that our life is a compilation of so many experiences, and we're not done yet. We're not done now. We're not done when we're 80 or even 90. We get another shot. Let's give each other another shot.
Yeah, I think that's excellent. And I do see a lot of people who have been stuck in place because they have over and over in their minds been living in the past when something happened to them or that they maybe did they're not proud of. And that feeling of being stuck is almost like self-punishment, as if that'll alleviate some of that guilt. But, she pointed out such excellent ways to start working on yourself and moving through that, pushing through that by acknowledging, by trying to have some more understanding, and then recognizing there's nothing you can do to change that, but you can move forward. And like you said, every day is a new opportunity to live, to grow, to mature. And that should be very inspiring to people.
Especially if you're a young person and you have some shame or you've made some mistakes. Welcome to humankind. And you've got a lot more years than Kristen and I, or maybe I better just speak for myself. And just keep going, give it another shot. Let's cut each other a break, but more important, cut yourself a break and keep going. So we loved this book. Pick it up. The third book in the trilogy from Alka Joshi, The Perfumist of Paris. And we wouldn't be here today sounding good and looking good if it wasn't for who, household name by now, the Mr. Mark Carey. There he is for those of you on YouTube.
Hope you guys enjoyed the show, and we'll see you again next week.
Thank you, Mark. They did, thanks to you. And guess who we have coming up on Bookstorm? We have some secrets that we can't quite announce yet that are in the works that you're going to be thrilled about. In the meantime, we also are so excited. We have CJ Box and his new release, Stormwatch, David Baldacci, Simply Lies, Susan Meisner, Only the Beautiful. We have Marie Benedict and Victoria Christopher Murray coming back with their new book release.
And listeners, stay on the radar with Bookstorm by visiting our website at bookstormpodcast.com. And you can find us on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, on TikTok. You'll see some of the amazing covers of the books that we have coming up. And if you'd like to see us in person, or better yet, one of our amazing authors, then you can see us on the video version of this podcast on YouTube. Just search for BOOKSTORM Podcast and we should come right up. Until next time, one of the best ways to brave the storm is to dive down deep into life-changing fiction.